Hey guys, Nemo here, and today we're gonna be taking a look at my Peacekeepers deck build. Before I do though, I do wanna give one little announcement. So the last couple of days I haven't been very active on YouTube. I've had a very busy life, so that's why. And also I'm going on vacation on Friday, which is gonna be the 17th of August, to the 20th. So that's Friday to Monday. Only 3 days, so but yeah, I'm not gonna be very active on those days either, so it's gonna be a while until I get more active again, which is probably gonna be like Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. I don't have a backlog of videos right now, so I'd have to make those again as well. That's the preferred way of doing things, otherwise it's gonna take a lot of time. So the best way is just to make a lot of videos and then start editing those, rather than make one video, edit those, that one, etc. But that does mean that I need to have some time to make a backlog. So yeah. Anyways, we're gonna do the Peacekeepers deck build now. And you're probably also gonna see a gameplay video today or tomorrow, depending on when this video comes out. So yeah, let's get into the deck manager and check this out. Last time I threw every card in there. This time I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna show you how I built it. Because I noticed that it makes for very long videos when I did it that way, and I had to edit a lot because I kept rambling on about things that weren't really important. So yeah, as I'm doing right now. So yeah, I decided to just keep it a little more short and simple. But as you can see, I have 61 cards in this deck, and that's because there's 25 lands in the deck, whether or not you have 61. So yeah, if I have 60 cards, then it's also 25 lands, and 25 lands is a bit much for this deck, so I like to offset that by having 61. It's like having 60 cards except one more land. It's not really like I have one more other card in there, it's just that one more land that makes it the 61. I could put more cards in there, but I feel like it performs pretty well the way it is right now, so I don't want to mess with it even more. And yeah, most of the time I just get the right number of lands now with 61 cards, so I'm happy with that. So yeah, these Doomed Travelers are amazing cards. There are 1/1s that come back as a 1/1 flyer, so they're better off when they're dead, but that doesn't mean that you have to like attack recklessly with them or something. They're still useful even when they're not dead, and that just makes it in their natural state, it makes it harder to get rid of them. Once there's a flying spirit token, then it's a 1-for-1 trade for the opponent or something like that, you know. So don't attack recklessly with them if you don't have to, but if you do need a flyer, then you can do that. Just think about it every time you attack in with these guys into something bigger. Sometimes it's just not what you want to do, and it's even better when you can block with them, when you can chump block with them and then get your flyer. That's probably the best way to use them. But they're great with all these Honor of the Pures and other kind of power boosts that this deck has, because then they're 2/2s and then they really start to become worth it for 1 mana, you know. So then there's the Elite Vanguard, or Ace as people call him. I don't actually know why they call him Ace, but he doesn't look like Ace Ventura, does he? But yeah, he's a 2/1 and he's just good enough, and I really decided with this deck that I wanted to go aggressively, so these guys just have to be in there. I would have liked to have one more 6-drop, but I don't feel that Loyal Sentry really fits this deck well, so I don't include him. But that does mean that I have only 5 1-drops for an aggressive deck. This isn't a very aggressive deck though. It's not like Goblins. It still has a bunch of control, and it's just that it's more aggressive than most decks, is really what I'm trying to say. And yeah, then there's these Master Decoys, which again, since I'm playing very aggressively, I don't like them, because they are not an aggressive thing. You can compare them with these pacifisms, which I don't run either, because they don't get rid of annoying abilities on creatures. So, and I didn't feel like I needed more removal, so that's why I'm not running pacifism. But if I would run pacifism before I run Master Decoy, because they basically do the same thing, except Master Decoy you have to keep tapping him. But yeah, basically he prevents creatures from attacking or blocking, just like pacifism does. So why would I want to have this guy if there's pacifism, which I'm not even running? So yeah. And pacifism I already talked about a little bit, but this is a very aggressive build and you don't want too much removal. And the thing is, like if you compared it with the previous game, so the Planeswalkers 2012, in that game you would probably run the pacifism because you just don't have much choice. That game it was really about getting rid of bad cards. In this game it's more about just building a deck with what you have, and there's gonna be good cards anyways, you know, that you're not gonna be able to run because there's just not enough room for everything. So it's different that way, and that's why pacifism doesn't make it, because this game you have to actually be about, you know, counting how much removal you want and how many creatures you want and all that. And I felt that I just wanted a little bit more creatures and less removal, and pacifism is the obvious card to get rid of. And compared with one card with Journey to Nowhere. Journey to Nowhere is obviously much better because it gets rid of annoying passive abilities and even active abilities, which pacifism doesn't even get rid of. So yeah, the most annoying cards are usually not the ones that just attack or block. Especially in the control decks you want to beat with this deck. And as well, Goblins, by the way, is a very easy deck to beat with this deck because you have so many tokens, so it's hard for them to get in, and you can make your tokens bigger, whereas they have more trouble doing that to theirs. But anyways, that's enough rambling for now. Accorder Paladin is also a very good card. He gives Battle Cry. I've seen deck builds with just 2 of him in there, which I don't get because he is amazing and I have no idea why I would take one of them out. Yes, he has just 1 toughness, but most of the time there's gonna be a trick you can do to at least get him to attack once, or even like you don't have to attack with him, right? You can always just keep him back in the first couple of turns, just get a bunch of tokens, and once you have enough guys, attack with him, and he deals just the amazing number of damage he deals extra. Just gonna be good enough. This guy is just great, and yeah, you have to do a little work to be able to attack with him without losing him. He's worth it, and even if you can't prevent him from dying, then sometimes he's just good enough by enough damage to your other guys that you still win anyways, or you just deal enough damage that you're gonna win the game, even if he dies, and even then they're usually gonna have to block him, which costs them a creature. So you at least trade, and you give all your other dudes battle cry. You know, the reason you want to keep him back is just that because that's how good he is. But you have to keep in mind though that indeed he is a 2-drop, so trading with one of their guys is not the end of the world, you know. And then if you get some more damage in from the other guys, then that's cherry on top, you know. So he's very good. Obviously these rings are terrible, and obviously Honor of the Pure is amazing for this deck, so let's just skip that, we don't need to talk about it. Journey to Nowhere is also amazing. Raise the Alarm, obvious include, just great. Squadron Hawks, I was debating on whether to include this, and really this is what I was looking at with the pacifisms. I was looking at either pacifism or Squadron Hawks, and in the end I just felt that, see, the problem I have with the Squadron Hawks, there's 3 of them, they're worth it if you drop one of them. They're not as worth it if you drop, if you draw the second one before you can drop it, you know. It happens a lot for some weird reason. Then you have 2 cost 1/1s, although they do have flying, granted, but still, and an extra you get, and then it's not really worth the mana, sorta, you know. It's not really worth the card. So in that case, then maybe pacifism is a little bit better there, but even then, pacifism not a very aggressive deck, aggressive card. So, and in the end, I really just felt that I did need those extra creatures to get some more aggression on the board early on. And in the end, even if I draw 2 of them, which happens just like all the time, by the way, then even then it's worth it. By the way, I usually get like Raise the Alarm or Honor of the Pure, as well as Squadron Hawk, or even this guy. Usually you want to drop those guys before you drop Squadron Hawk, you know, because they're better in being aggressive. Then you do that, and you just know you're gonna draw the second Squadron Hawk, because that always happens to me. I don't know if that's a weird thing with this game, or if that's just me being unlucky, but it always happens to me. And then you're very sad. But even then, it's just a good enough card. You gotta include it. Oh yeah, and then there's the Spectral Rider, which has Intimidate. He's a 2/2. I like the card, but it just doesn't fit the theme of this deck. There's enough white cards in the game, and there's gonna be even more with the expansion. There's gonna be a lot of white in there, so I didn't think that Spectral Rider was gonna be very good there, and he isn't good enough in this one either. He's not as good as a Raise the Alarm, Honor of the Pure, or a Journey to Nowhere, and he doesn't cut it with against the Squadron Hawks either. So it just doesn't make the cut. That's the way it goes. And there's a Tended Knight, which is an obvious include. I don't know what you're doing if you're not running this, but it's basically a free for free, except half of it has first strike, and it's divided in 2 creatures instead of 1, which obviously is great with this deck, because if you get a boost, then you get +2/+2 instead of +1/+1 for this one card. In fact, because you get both your dudes get +1/+1. So yeah, it's very well in this deck and is an amazing card. Either way, a 2/2 with first strike is not to be underestimated, and getting an extra dude is just cherry on top, you know. Great card. And then there's the Fiend Hunters, which I think you have to run with this deck, but I'm not entirely happy with them because they are easy to remove, and sometimes it's dangerous to cast them on a creature that just come into playability. So I'm not because if they kill the Fiend Hunter, then they get to come into playability again, and sometimes just blow you out with that. I'm not entirely happy with them, and you can replace them with like pacifism, or take one of these out and add one pacifism or whatever. But I personally feel that they are needed, and that they do exile the creature, and I feel that exile is very important, a very strong ability this deck they have. So that's why the Fiend Hunters are in there. Yeah. So, but they are one of the weakest cards in the deck, granted. Which is very weird to say, because if you just look at them, they seem so great, but yeah, it's so easy to kill them, and that's a problem compared to many of the other removal lists that this deck has. And then there's the Flicker-Wisp, which I was testing against like a Crusader of Odric, or an Intrepid Hero, or one of the Midnight Guards, or one of the Night Guard Patrols. Yeah, I know that my Night Guard Patrol is bad, by the way, but I was just testing it, you know, just interested in these cards really is good, and I was thinking that it's either gonna be Flicker-Wisp or Crusader of Odric, and in the end, seeing how many times it comes up, and every time I got one of these cards, by the way, what I did was just write down which of the cards would have been most useful in this situation of those 4 or 5. Flicker-Wisp was the most useful of those. I did have a spot for it, so I included Flicker-Wisp, and I did know that it's a great card anyway. Every time you get this guy, there's always a use for him, which is amazing. And I don't know, I think he fits the deck well anyways, because he is a 3/1 flyer. It's very for free mana, which is very aggressively. They finally get to, you know, get some guys on the board, try to stall you out, and then you get a 3/1 flyer. That's very good. So yeah, and plus the turn he comes into play, you can remove their big blocker or something and get in. And the turn after that, you have a 3/1 flyer they have to deal with, and it's taking some damage. You know. So it's really good for this deck, and it works out really well. Yeah, so I think he's better. And the Crusader of Odric, if they have any mass removal, then Crusader of Odric just dies, like Flame Break or whatever. You know, enough of your other guys die, then Crusader dies. Having him alone, or her, as I should say, when you have a bad hand or something, then this girl on herself isn't good. And I tend to avoid cards like that. Which is also why I prefer the Glorious Anthems, the Guardian's Pledges, because turn 3, sometimes you want to just drop something turn 3, you got nothing else. And it's good to drop the Glorious Anthem, but Guardian's Pledge, you always want to, you know, work towards it. And I was again, this is one thing I did, just look at the Glorious Anthems versus the Guardian's Pledge and see when they're more useful, you know. I did with Flicker-Wisp, and I just eventually decided that Glorious Anthems are better, more useful than the Guardian's Pledge, and I don't think I want to run all of these, because I'm already running the Honor of the Pures, which is amazing, and I am running the Safe Passage, which is also kind of a combat trick anyways. So I don't want to run too many of those cards, which aren't guys. I don't want to run too many cards that aren't dudes, because I want this deck. This is an aggressive deck. I do want just some guys in the field at all times. I don't want to run out of guys and only have boost cards for for guys that I don't have in my hand. So I don't want to run too many of these, so I think this is a fair number. So Guardian's Plate is a great card, but just doesn't cut it. And then I already talked about these, they're just not good enough. This card doesn't fit in an aggressive deck, and these cards just aren't good enough. So Pen and Blade, I guess this is okay if you're going for like a flying heavy build or like a control build or something, but then those builds are bad. This card itself is pretty bad anyways. It costs 7 before it does anything, and that's just too much mana, no matter how good it is. So yeah, and even then it's just not gonna be as good as like being Captain of the Watch. So and this is 1 more mana, so why would I ever want to do that? I have no idea. And again, it's something that isn't the guy anyway, so yeah. And then there's Oblivion Ring, which quite possibly one of the best removal spells. So I don't see why you would not run Oblivion Ring. And, again, this is a very good card because it gets rid of stuff like worship, just stuff that isn't a creature you can deal with now, because this deck has Oblivion Ring. Safe Passage is just the card that I found in testing to be a great card, and it really blows out other decks. And, it's great. It's also good with the Accorder Paladin. Sometimes it's just good enough to just attack with the Accorder Paladin, maybe 1 more guy, 2 more, even just Accorder Paladin and 1 other guy. They're gonna be like blocking, and again, you have to trade with the Accorder Paladin early on in the game because there's not gonna be big enough unless they're playing Pack Instinct. So this makes sure that your Accorder Paladin survives. Their big guy that can block your Accorder Paladin is dead. So it's just, you know, you get in for some damage, and then after that you get in for some more damage, and that already made all of it worth it, because you've done so much damage that it's very hard for them to stabilize and come back in the game after that. So just for that purpose alone, it's already very good. It's just, you know, everything else, it's great against like Exalted. You know, every time it's going to be a race between you and the opponent. You can do it to save you, then kill them on the next turn. You can attack with all your dudes. If they block, you play Safe Passage. If they don't block, then you play Safe Passage when they attack with all their dudes the following turn. So it's just a great card, and the beauty of this card, which makes it really good, is that they do take damage. You know, it's not like Fog. The opponent does take damage from it, so it's better than that, and I just think it's a great card. Yeah, you would say that it costs 3 mana, and sometimes you don't have the mana to keep that mana open. But you know, you gotta work for the Safe Passage rather than try to get into the optimum position for it. And it's a good enough card that you don't need to get into an optimum position to use it. So sometimes you just want to attack and use it, and even then it's gonna be good enough, even if it doesn't immediately win you the game. You don't have to get greedy with the Safe Passage there. So in the end, I run 2 Captain Skulls. Because again, this is one of those cards where I was comparing it with the Elgard Inquisitor and the Mausoleum Guard, and in the end I just, every single time almost, I went, well, Captain Skull would have been the best play here. So obviously against mass removal it's nicer to have a Mausoleum Guard, because then you get some more guys out after that. But it doesn't always work like that, and sometimes you just draw this after the mass removal or whatever. And I haven't gotten into enough situations where I felt it was worth the Mausoleum Guard for that reason. I just want to get multiple guys on, so I have the Captain Skulls in there. I have 2 because Dawn Elemental is a great card that you have to play, and Oderic obviously has to be played in this deck, and there's just not more room for more of them. I do want to keep this very aggressive, not too many high cost creatures in there, so yeah. That's why there's only 2, but they are very good in this deck. And then Dawn Elemental, like I said, has to be played. It's weird that it costs 4 white. I don't know of any cards that cost just 4 white, but anyways, flying 3/3, prevent all damage that will be dealt to Dawn Elemental, and it's just a great card in general. Burn and the green deck can't really deal with it, and many other decks that either have to remove it or not be able to deal with it. So I mean, yeah, it gets killed by removal, but I mean, well, and removal that isn't burn or fight mechanic related, that is. And even then, I mean, they have to use removal on a forecast, so that's not bad. It's just it's a card that they guaranteed have to deal with, and it's just great. and usually he's not even just a free flyer with this deck because you have all the boost. That makes him very dangerous, because anything that's like 4/4 flyer is already very dangerous, and something that is even higher than that is gonna be even more dangerous. You know, it's just a great card. I'd say that maybe it doesn't fit this deck perfectly, but every time I played it, it was useful to me, so I want this in there. And also, I don't want to get too many Captain Skulls, because I don't want this deck to be completely just weenie focused, because then you can get blown out by mass removal very easily. So and this deck does have problems if you don't run the Dawn Elemental against decks like Born of Flame. So it's just great to have a card that works very well against some of your weakest, your otherwise weakest matchups. So great card. Definitely recommend running them. And again, these Outguard Inquisitors and the Mausoleum Guards, by the way, I really like the Mausoleum Guard, but just not as good as Captain Skull, so they're not in there. I would run this in like a more control-y version of the deck, obviously, but this deck isn't a control deck. It's not as good when you make it a control deck, so I'm not gonna do that. Sigil of the New Dawn, again, also much better in a control deck. But if you can sideboard, like, you would run this against the black deck or something like that, you know. Obviously this game doesn't have sideboarding unless you're playing in like a championship or something, which I'm not, by the way, because I can't record on the Xbox. Oh well. But yeah, if you're running, then you would sideboard this in against some decks, but it's not good enough to be in the main board, and it's not an aggressive card. It's just not. It's a card for a control deck, and this isn't a control deck, so that's why I don't run it. Windborne Charge, really, I would probably run Guardian's Pledge before I ran Windborne Charge, so there's not even talking. I don't even get what this is doing in the deck, because again, you have so many dudes that you're not usually gonna have trouble getting by them, and it's also a card that only works to kill the opponent, and I'm not a huge fan of cards that do that, especially not if they're 4 mana. I mean, that's just a little bit too much. So it's just not a good enough card. And again, I want to have enough dudes so that they actually have something on the field in the first place. Archon of Justice is a card that I was really debating on, and I really like the card, but again, I feel that it's more control oriented. And every time I played it, I just went, well, I'd rather have Guy Standard Monk. And obviously I'm gonna run both Guy Standard Monks. So the option for me was to have 1 Archon of Justice and 2 Guy Standard Monks, or what I figured later was probably better, is that I take out the one last Archon of Justice and add another Captain Skull, because this is a token oriented deck, so Captain Skull is probably a better card. And usually when I want to have Archon of Justice is if I'm really gonna be in trouble, and having more dudes turn earlier probably prevents me from getting in that trouble in the first place. So yeah, why wouldn't I run Captain Skull instead of an Archon of Justice? I don't know. I feel that this is more of a control card. In the end, it is a 4/4 flyer for 5, which is, I guess, good for a slower deck. And then when it dies, exile target permanent. But I mean, if you're just gonna have him in there, which many of the times I did, just to have him to block their biggest dude and then exile it, you know, then why wouldn't I run Pacifism instead? I'm not even running Pacifism, so I don't think it's good enough to make this deck for the aggro way of running it. And again, the aggro way of running it is really, as I see, the only way of running it, because it's just much better. So yeah, Archon of Justice doesn't make it. Sorry guys. Turn the Tables is just a terrible card. 5 cost Fog that kills one of their guys. No thanks. So then there's Captain of the Watch, and I'm running 2 of them. They're great cards, but I don't want to run more than 2 6-cost creatures in my deck. So that's it, you know. And Spirit of the Hearth is a flying guy that has X-proof. This guy just doesn't even fit the deck. I get it though. I mean, if you have like Dawn Elemental and this guy out against Born of Flame, then that's pretty much GG against them, because there's nothing they can do. But it's like, you know, me win more. So, and it's only worth it against one deck to do. I mean, the X-proof is usually not even important. I don't get it. It's just a bad card, basically. And then there's Sun Titan. Sun Titan is an amazing card. It's one of the best 6 drops could run in any deck, but not in this deck, because this deck is an aggro deck that focuses a lot on soldier creatures and not that much that benefits actually from the Suntine. Yeah, although one thing that benefits a lot is Fiend Hunter, and another one is Flicker Wisp. Those are great cards to use with Suntine, but other than that, it's not extremely worth it. You just, I mean, most of the time at turn 6 you're gonna be looking at a play that wins you the game that single turn. Captain of the Watch can do that for you if you have some other soldiers out, and just having more of these means that I did want to run more of the Captain's Call, so that's why I came to that conclusion as well. But yeah, they just work great, and there's plenty of soldiers in the deck that dropping this can be a win on that single turn. And even if not, it's just a very, very strong play. But, however, sometimes I do prefer just the Geisthound Monk, which is strange because Geisthound Monk is a 5-drop, and that really, I guess, represents just how good Geisthound Monk is in this deck. And that's because Geisthound Monk brings you Flyer, so if they're beating you with Flyer, then that helps you survive that turn and probably wins you the game on the next turn as well. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if there were 2 more Geisthound Monks, then maybe I wouldn't even run these Captain of the Watches in the first place. And that makes sense because it's a very aggro deck. But yeah, I couldn't afford to run more than 2 6-drops, and again, I felt that having 2 captains is better than running one of these Suntine. Spirit of the Hearth isn't even a question. Well, Archangel isn't even a question. Like, this is 7-drop in an aggro-ish deck. No, and he doesn't even have haste. I mean, it's not a chroma, guys. Anyways, then there's like Mass Calcifier, which, why would you run this? It's 7 cost, over the top, win more card, just isn't needed in this deck, and not a control deck in the first place, so I don't see it. I didn't run these in March to War, and indeed this deck is much better than March to War, so why would I run them in this deck? No idea, so let's not do that. That's the deck, guys. Again, 61 cards is because that 61st card is a land. But if you want to run 60 cards with this deck, then I guess what you could get rid of is one of these Fiend Hunters, because it's easy to get rid of a Fiend Hunter, which makes it dangerous against enters the battlefield creatures that you would want to remove, like for instance Plague Worm or something like that. Although, and also another thing you could consider is adding a pacifism instead of that Fiend Hunter. That's also something you could consider. Just looking at this. Yeah, that's probably gonna be it. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, by the way, is also something with Odric. Right now on the iPad version of this game and the PC version of this game, because we did get the patch that let's actually go out of this deck and show you. Save and quit, yeah. So Yiva, for instance, is 4/4 for me right now, because there was a patch for this game, and if you're playing on Xbox or PlayStation, then you haven't got this patch. She has 4 toughness, and it's also the same for the one in Born of Flame, the flyer. Let's go for it real quick here. Yeah, Firewing Phoenix is now 4/2 for me because of the patch, and it's fixed a lot of other things, and I'm sure you guys can Google it if you want to see the patch notes. Maybe I'll add it in the description, I don't know. But yeah, along with that, with a lot of good fixes and a very good patch in general, which is gonna come for the Xbox and PlayStation versions, by the way, when the expansion is released, because it costs a lot to actually make something downloadable on Xbox Live as well as on PlayStation, because they charge a lot. So yeah, because Microsoft and Sony charge a lot for that. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about is that Archetype right now is a little bit bugged in the PC and iPad versions. It might be bugged later on with when the expansion comes out for the Xbox and PlayStation version, unless they fix it, which I hopefully do. Namely that right now there's no way to actually make people block when you get Archetype's ability to go off. The only thing you can do is just make them not block. That's the only choice you have. You attack with Archetype and 3 other guys at least. So even then, he's still worth including in the deck. So he's still in there for me, but he's obviously better on Xbox and PlayStation right now, because you can get rid of annoying creatures when you need to. I'm happy with him either way, but he would be better if that bug didn't exist. So yeah, that's the build, and that's how I run it. I'm sure people are gonna disagree a little bit about this, but I personally feel that this is really the best way to run this deck right now. And yeah, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'm gonna get some more gameplay with this deck as well. Well, you know my traditional salute. My name has been Nemo, and I will still be Nemo next time in the gameplay video for this deck. See you guys then. Bye bye.